Hey creative friends, I'm at Curio's art studio space located on Main Street of Zillionople next to the Strand. Today we have a very snowy episode planned for you today. We're going to be learning how to draw polar bears with a fun, colorful background. We're also going to take a look at a book about 3 polar bears and an artist named Snowflake Bentley who is famous for photographing snowflakes and finding that each snowflake truly is different and no 2 snowflakes are the same. So get the supplies you need and get ready to make an awesome masterpiece on Curio Creates. Here's what we will be using today to make our art project. Remember, use what you have at home. It's okay if you don't have the same things that we do. Once you have all your supplies, let's get started. Hey, now that you have your supplies ready to go, we're gonna get started on making a sweet polar bear picture today. So this is our watercolor paper. We're gonna start with the pencil, so if we make mistakes, which we might, we can erase. So the first thing we're gonna do is find the middle of our paper. And this is where we're gonna start out with our polar bear's head. We're gonna make a nice big circle. You are more than welcome to get something to trace too, but we're gonna make a circle that is kind of medium sized. And you know what, I'm actually going to do it just a tiny bit higher than the middle. I'm going to make this nice round circle shape that looks something kind of like this. And we don't want to draw too small of a circle because then you can't fit all of your polar bear's features onto the face, but we also don't want it so gigantic that we don't have any room for the rest of his body. I love that you found something to trace. Go ahead and trace that. For your circle, Ray found a roll of tape that we had in the studio. You could use like a plate, a cup, you know, something that's maybe in the recycling from a jar or something that you had. So we're gonna start with a nice circle in the middle. Perfect. We're going to start off with his nose or hers, and we're gonna do a triangle shape for that. First, we're gonna start with the letter V to help the shape of our triangle. So right in the middle, we are going to make our letter V that goes down and back up. Right now it looks absolutely nothing like a polar bear. It looks more like a bird with a beak, but we will make it more polar bear-esque as we keep going. Once we have our V, we're gonna connect the top of it together so we make it our triangle like that. That is kind of the nose, but then there's like a muzzle, so it's an area that sticks out because a polar bear's kind of nose and mouth is kind of all in the same location. So instead of trying to draw it extremely realistically, we're just going to make another circle that kind of goes around our nose to make it look like it kind of sticks out a little bit, because this is kind of a cartoon polar bear. He's a little bit more simple.
Are we allowed to add like a highlight to him?
Yeah, let's talk about that once we get to coloring. You don't have to do it with pencil, but I love that idea. That's great. Well, we need our polar bear to see. That is important. So we're gonna draw 2 eyes. I'm just gonna keep it simple with 2 circles for eyes that are up above the snout. But if you want to draw eyes a different way, you can. I'm just gonna do my eyes kind of regular and black, but if you want to draw them a different way, you can. We need to give ears that are very specific for polar bear. So we're going to make a rainbow shape, and I'm going to do it on the sides. I'm going to make a rainbow shape on one side that's kind of the top and side together. And then I'm going to do that same thing on the other side. And I think that can be the hardest thing sometimes, is trying to do the same thing on both sides. So I'm gonna keep these for my inside. And now I'm going to make another rainbow shape for the outside of my polar bear's ears. So our polar bear is looking straight at us. So we're gonna actually be drawing the rest of his body or her body like it's right behind it. So we're gonna start up above the ears just a little bit, up here in this spot above the head. We're gonna start up here, and you let me know if you need dot to dots.
Can you please dot to dots?
Oh, I sure can. Remember, for those younger artists, if they need help and they aren't quite sure how to draw what you're asking them to, you can always do a little line that's kind of a broken line or a dotted line, so they're able to follow along with what's happening. It gives them the feeling that they're doing it on their own, but you give them a little bit of a guide so it's a little bit easier. So I'm going to do my rainbow in 2 parts. I'm going to start in the middle, and I'm going to kind of go to the left, and I'm going to go slow, because when I go slow I can control my project more and what I'm drawing. And I'm going to bend my rainbow down until it almost touches the bottom, but doesn't quite, because we're going to leave some room for feet. And the reason why I'm doing it in 2 sections is because now I'm going to start back up in the middle just so I remember where it's nice and even and where I started. And I'm going to go down on this side. So we're going to start underneath the chin. We're going to leave a little space. Maybe right about here. This dot would be kind of how high I want to go. And we're going to make our legs wide enough to support our polar bear. We don't want legs that are so incredibly skinny it looks like our polar bear's walking on stilts. We also don't want it to be so big and thick it looks like they're so heavy our polar bear could never move the legs. So we're going to make sure that they seem about right with the way that we drew it. That looks phenomenal. Are you happy with what you made?
Yes.
You should be. We left a little bit of space at the bottom so that we can do some feet. And you might be thinking, maybe you're thinking, what is going on? My polar bear only has 2 legs, but it doesn't. It has 4, but what's happening is that we're looking at our polar bear looking right at you, so the legs that are behind the front legs can't be seen in this picture. This doesn't mean that our polar bear has 2 legs. It means that the legs in the front are blocking the legs from the back. Just like if I turn sideways like this, you can only see my one arm. That doesn't mean that I only have one arm. It means that my arms are on the other side over here, but the rest of my body is blocking it. So that happens a lot when we draw different things. We have to think about the way that our animal or our person is positioned, so we make sure we draw things on the right side of the body. So we're gonna do some simple paws. We know that polar bear have really strong big paws that are nice and fluffy. So are you ready to draw our paws? We're going to continue with the rainbow shape. I'm sure by now you're really good at it. I think we've done it 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We've done it 6 times. We're gonna do it 2 more times. So you're really rocking out that rainbow shape. So we're gonna make rainbows at the bottom of our legs. And I'm gonna make my rainbow a little wider than the foot. A little wider than the leg, I guess I should say. Our foot is gonna be a little wider than the leg. And Ray, do you want to do this on your own, or do you want me to help you with it?
Dot to dot.
Dot to dot. Okay. So I'm going to do that dot to dot for Ray. Ayla's rocking it out on her own, which is great. And at any point, if we're doing something and you have a different way of wanting to do it, please do that. This is your masterpiece, and we're excited to see what you do creatively. This is just the beginning of all the different ideas you can add into it. Holy moly. Ayla actually went ahead and she drew this extra line right here and a little bit of a foot, so it actually shows that you can see back into a little bit of the back legs. Do you mind if I take that awesome idea and add it to mine too?
No, we don't mind.
Thank you so much. I love it. I never even thought of doing that before. So we're gonna go ahead and add some toes. So I'm gonna do 3 toes, which means I only need 2 little lines. If you want to add a couple more toes, you can. Our feet went all the way to the bottom of our paper. If you don't want your feet to go all the way to the bottom, you could make a really nice bumpy line to look like snow. Right now, our polar bear is just kind of floating on this piece of paper. We don't know what's sky, what's ground, what's going on around the background. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna pick a spot to make there be a line so it shows where the ground is and our polar bear's standing and it's grounded. And you could do it low on your paper like Ayla did. So that makes it look like our polar bear is really close to us in the picture. You could also do it further back. You could do a line that's back here. I'm gonna have Ray do that. Ray, can you do a bumpy line that kind of is back here like this for me? If you do something like that. Ray's line is going to be back further, and it's going to make it look like there's snow and we're seeing it way back into the distance. Ray's is showing that there's more depth and that it goes back farther. And I'm going to do one kind of in the middle. I'm going to do a line that kind of stops at my polar bear's legs and kind of continues. And I'm going to be really fancy and make it look like there's some snow drifts in the back and make it look like it has a little bit of a hill to it, like that. So that's where my snow is going to be. You don't want to draw through your polar bear or it looks like your snow and your polar bear are all the same. Make sure that you draw your line and you stop when you get to your polar bear and you continue on the other side. I'm going to talk about the next part while they finish adding any extras they have. So this is where different things that you have at home can be used. We are using a black oil pastel for this next part. The reason why we're using this is because it actually will smear, and we're going to use the smearing to help us out a little bit with making our polar bear look more realistic. If you don't have an oil pastel, it's fine. You could use a Sharpie. You could use a black crayon if you want to, a black colored pencil. Anything that would make a darker line so that you can see your project really well would be great. So I'm going to very carefully start to use my oil pastel. The first thing I'm going to do is start in the middle because I said this would smear. So what we don't want to do is work down here and our hand is rubbing over it. It will smear it a lot. First, we're going to start with the nose. We're going to trace around our triangle for the nose. I'm going to color in my nose, but this is where Ayla said, can we leave an area at the top? If we leave an area at the top white, it will look like a highlight. It'll look like the light is reflecting off of the snow or the light from the sun is giving the tip of the nose kind of a nice highlight. After I do my nose, I'm going to go ahead and do my circle around my nose. I'm going to keep going. I'm going to do my eyes. I'm kind of starting in the middle and working out. I'm going to color my eyes in, but I'm going to leave a little dot so that my eyes look like they have a little bit of a pupil to them, a little sense of direction.
Can we trace the head?
Yeah, we're going to keep going. Take a look at this awesome book entitled The Three Snow Bears by Jan Brett. This book is a really fun take on the traditional story of Goldilocks and the Three Bears. And Jan Brett is an incredible author and illustrator with beautifully detailed images, along with extra pieces on the sides that gives you a little bit of a more detailed look than what's happening in the story. The Three Snow Bears by Jan Brett. Come back, Aluki shouted as her huskies floated out to sea. Oh no, she knew that although an ice floe is a good place to fish, it's a bad place to lose a dog team. Not far away, a snow bear family had just started to eat their breakfast, but it was way too hot for Baby Bear. Owie, yelled Baby Bear. My breakfast burned my mouth. We'll go for a stroll and let the soup cool, Mama Bear said. Aluki was running along looking for her dogs when she came upon the biggest igloo she had ever seen. Who lives here? She wondered. Aluki ducked inside. Right away, she smelled something delicious. Across the room, she saw a big bowl, a middle-sized bowl, and a small bowl. Surely the good smell was coming from those three bowls. Aluki took a sip from the biggest bowl. Ow! She cried. Too hot. She took a sip from the middle-sized bowl. Ooh! Too cold. She tipped up the littlest bowl and drank every drop. She said. Not too hot and not too cold. In the next room, Aluki spotted 3 pairs of beautiful boots standing in a row. She put on the biggest boots. Too big, she said. She put on the middle-sized boots. Too fancy, she said. She put on the littlest pair. Just right, she said, wiggling her toes in the soft fur lining. Aluki walked into the last room and found a long sleeping bench piled high with fur covers. Heat from an oil lamp warmed her cheeks and made her sleepy. Time for a nap, she thought. She crawled under the highest mound of covers. Too lumpy, she grumbled. She tried the middle bed with the furry fringe cover, but sank down so far she could hardly breathe. Too soft, she said. She rolled over into the smallest sleeping place. The furry blanket was cozy and warm, and the pillow was just her size. Just right, Aluki murmured, and she was asleep before she could take her boots off. If Aluki hadn't fallen fast asleep, she might have heard her dogs barking happily. Papa Bear, Mama Bear, and Baby Bear had spotted them adrift in the strong current and had gone out to save them. The Snow Bear family was pushing Aluki's dog team back toward their igloo and safety. Papa Bear crawled into the igloo and saw his big bowl sitting in a pool of spilled soup. "Someone has been tasting my soup," he roared. Mama Bear rushed in and saw that her soup had been sloshed around too. "Someone has been sipping my soup," she growled. "Someone found my soup," sputtered Baby Bear in her high, squeaky voice, "and they ate it all up." Papa Bear ran into the next room and saw his boots in the middle of the floor. "Someone has been trying on my boots," he boomed in his big bear voice. Mama Bear put on her fancy boots. "Someone has had these boots on," she huffed, "and the fur is all bunched up." Baby Bear saw that her boots had disappeared. "Someone has taken my boots and left behind these not as good ones," she wailed. The bears ran into their bedroom. "Someone has been sleeping in my bed," Papa Bear bellowed. "Someone has been sleeping in my bed too," Mama Bear cried. Baby Bear peeked at her little bed and squeaked. "Someone has been sleeping in my bed, and here she is." Aluki opened her eyes and saw 3 bare noses only inches away. She hopped out of bed and dove between Papa Bear's huge furry legs. Quicker than a seal, Aluki ran from room to room until she burst outside. Her huskies bounced around, barking and smiling their doggy grins. Aluki and her dogs flew over the frozen ice, dodging ridges and cracks. She looked back to wave thank you to the Snow Bears. She couldn't see them, but she heard a big gruff voice, a middle-sized voice, and a high squeaky voice calling to her. "Bye-bye, bye-bye, bye-bye." What a great story. Aren't those pictures beautiful? Let's go back in and check out how our projects are going. What we're gonna do, those of us that have oil pastels, because they smear, we're gonna use the smearing to our advantage. And we're gonna take our pointy finger, this finger, then I'm like, it was you. You did it, this pointy finger. We're gonna take our pointy finger and we're going to start on the outside of our polar bear and we're gonna pull in like this. And this is gonna smear some of our black inside to make it look like it has a little bit of just depth to it. Instead of it just being all white, we know, I'm sure, that polar bears aren't all completely beautifully white like they just came out of clean laundry. You know, there is, when the light is shining, some shadows. There are some dirty areas, I'm sure, from playing. There are lots of different shades on our white polar bear. So we're gonna use this smearing to help make it look a little bit more interesting. And we're gonna start at our line and pull forward. Start at our line, pull forward. Yeah, that's fine. Whatever finger you feel more comfortable using. I'm using my finger on my right hand because I am right-handed. And then I'm actually going to go ahead and I'm going to do inside my ears too. Right in here, I'm gonna take my finger and instead of coloring this in with a black oil pastel, I'm gonna take the extra oil pastel that's smearing on my finger and color in my ear.
Ta-da.
Nice.
Can we do a little bit to the head too?
Yeah, definitely.
Because the head looks super clean and I want to make it look like it's with.
You can do something like this, Ayla. Here, this is what I'll do. I'm gonna start underneath the ear, just on one side, and underneath the chin on one side. And if I kind of go back and forth like this, it'll create a shadow look. Just looks so much more interesting than when it was left plain white. But we definitely didn't want to like color it in a color because we didn't want to make it too dark. You can do the feet if you want, or you could leave stuff empty. You can do this as much or as little as you want.
Perfect.
Ayla, can I make a suggestion? Since these legs back here are in the back, we probably want to do a little bit more of our shading back here so it looks darker.
Great.
And then the last thing I'm going to do right here, Ray, I'm going to rub my finger this way and make it look like there's a little, kind of like a little fold in the body, lots of muscles and fur, and that'll add a little bit of depth to it also. But we're gonna do our background. One thing I really like to do anytime I do something with a polar bear or something that's Arctic is make a colorful background with the idea maybe of like northern lights or, you know, just some really beautiful blues and purples, or maybe even a sunset scene. So don't think of it as like, I'm doing a sky, I must color it all blue. We can do many different shades. So when we're using watercolor paint, the best thing to do is to get that water in there so that it can start to make these little hard watercolor pieces nice and soft so we can use our paint.
Like this?
Perfect. So this is kind of like our paint is really condensed and there's a lot of pigment in here. So sometimes when people are using watercolor paints for the first time, there's a thought that you have to like push your paintbrush down and get all of this color, and sometimes you can even have chunks of the paint in there, but that's not what we want to do. We want to actually have a little puddle in our water at all times, and what we want to do is we want to roll our paintbrush just at the top because this is the paint. It's a diluted color, so we want just the puddle at the top to be what we use. If our puddle runs out, we just get more water, add more water into it so that we can constantly be getting more. I'm going to do something a little bit different here. I'm actually going to do purples and blues, and I'm going to use a lot of water to smear it out, but I'm going to purposefully mix my colors together just a little bit or have them hit together and blend. So I'm going to keep everything really, really wet. So this purple's really wet. I'm gonna get some of this blue, and as my blue and my purple meet together, they are going to blend together a little bit, which is great. And I'm gonna kind of paint in patches of color. So I'm gonna do some areas of purple and then some areas of blue. If this ever happens to you that your color is so dark, it almost looks black, wash off your brush and just add some plain water to it and smear that color out so that we can see through it. Watercolor is supposed to be liquidy and fluid, and it should be really nice and kind of airy. You should be able to get the idea that we can see through it. It's not supposed to necessarily be a really thick, opaque look to it. We want to make sure we don't paint into our polar bear. The great thing about oil pastel is that it kind of acts as a, wait for it, barrier. That was really bad. That was really bad. It acts as a barrier. It kind of makes the watercolor paint not go on top of it because this is water. Our oil pastel is oil. The two of those together, oil and water, they don't get along, so they actually repel each other. They resist each other, so it's helping us not get our paint into our polar bear, which is great. One of my favorite things is how we all had a similar idea of what we were drawing today, but everybody's looks so different. We just finished up painting our watercolor backgrounds. They're almost dry. I would definitely wait until they're dry if you'd like to continue doing anything else with your project. So your project could be absolutely done. It looks awesome. We decided we want to do a little bit more to make the snow look really cool. And I have to share with you an art supply that I love. It is a crystal glitter paint. And what it is it's just a paint that goes on clear. Even though it looks white, it goes on clear, and then it adds a sparkle to it. And I feel like I use it on everything. Like I'm like, a mermaid tail, add glitter to it. Unicorn, add glitter to it. Snow, add glitter to it.
Glitter to it.
Yeah!
Pig, add glitter.
So what we're gonna do for our snow, again, you don't have to do this at all, but what we're gonna do for the snow, not our polar bear, what we're gonna do for our snow underneath is we're going to take this glittery color and we're just gonna paint it on, and when it dries, it will have like a little bit of a sheen to it. What we're gonna do next is we're gonna do a couple different ways to add snowflakes on our project. So we have lots of different options for ways to do snowflakes. Raylan has these cool stickers that I found. So she's gonna put some stickers in the background as her snowflakes. Another way you could do snowflakes is by actually drawing them on. You can use a white crayon, or you could use an oil pastel. You could use a colored pencil, or you could also use white paint. Ayla, do you have a preference of what you want to do?
How about, could I have white paint and some stickers?
Whoa. Yes, you can. You can obviously do more than one thing. I'll give you some white paint here. Here's a paintbrush. I'll go ahead and show oil pastel, so we have all different ways. Don't forget you have to take the sticker off the back.
Oh, yeah.
That's why it didn't stick.
I don't know why I just did that.
Snowflakes could be simple little polka dots.
Polka dot, da 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 da.
Snowflakes could be the letter X with an extra line in it.
It could be the whole alphabet.
I really don't think you can. As we're adding our snowflakes to the back of our project, check out this really cool photographer who was one of the first people to recognize that all snowflakes, every single one of them is different, and actually photograph them for the first time. Since we're working on snowflakes and polar bears today, I wanted to share with you a really special book entitled Snowflake Bentley. This book was written by Jacqueline Briggs Martin and illustrated by Mary Azarian. Looking on the cover, you'll notice that it's won the Caldecott Medal. That means that in the year that this book was published, it was the most distinguished American picture book for children. And it's normally and always awarded to the illustrators of the books. This book is really incredible because it talks about the life of Wilson Bentley, who was a photographer and meteorologist. He grew up on a farm in Vermont, and he was one of the first people to ever photograph snowflakes and realize that each one of them are different and that they follow similar patterns, and he began studying them. It's a really interesting but very long book, and I'm not going to read it all today during Curio Creates. If you would like to hear the whole thing, you can head over to our YouTube channel at Curio Cool, and I'll have a recording of the book so you can listen to it when you're done with your masterpiece today. Well, we are all finished showing you how to make your masterpiece today, but we're excited to see where your creativity takes you and how you decide to finish off your project and the ideas that you came up with on your own with the supplies you have at home. Please remember to tag us if you upload your image online so we can see it at Curio Cool, and be sure to like and subscribe our YouTube channel for even more information, videos, and fun things to check out at home. Hey, let's tell our friends goodbye until we see them next time. Thanks, We'll see you later. Thank you so much for taking the time to make art with us today. I hope you had as much fun as we did. If you would like to have more content or always be in the know of something cool that's happening at Curio, be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel and our website at curiocool.com. This will keep you updated with any new classes, events, videos, kits, art supplies, art shows, and more.